Well, hello again. Another Wednesday devotional for you. Can you believe it's been now 3 weeks today since, I guess for me anyway, this change in our life really started to hit home. It was 3 weeks ago today, I believe, that the NBA canceled the rest of, I guess they haven't canceled the rest of their season, but they started canceling games. It was about 3 weeks ago today that major college basketball tournaments started to cancel their tournaments. Some of them literally with teams warming up on the floor, and they pulled the plug and said that was it. And it seems like 3 weeks ago today that things just started to snowball. So universities told their students not to come back from spring break, and then they started recommending that you shouldn't be a part of a gathering of 250 or more people, and then it was 50 or more people, and it was 10 or more people. Then our schools closed, and then businesses started to close. Restaurants closed their dining rooms. People started working at home. It was every day something new came. Every day something changed. And of course, we were trying to figure out what to do with church, and we would have a meeting and we'd say, well, here's what I think's going to happen, and here's what we can do, and here's what this looks like. And then the next day everything would change, and our plans would have to change to adjust to that. And if there's ever been a time where you've had to say, well, I think this is what we're going to do, or it looks like this is what's going to happen, I mean, this has been that time. In fact, there's a Latin phrase that Christians have used over the years, Deo volente. It means God willing. Back in the day, in fact, Christians would often, Christian businessmen, if they would write a letter, they would mark at the bottom of the letter the initials DV. Here are my plans, here's what I hope to do, but God willing. Church bulletins would say, this coming Sunday, we're going to have a potluck, and everybody's going to bring food, and the missionary's going to come from here or there. And then it'd be marked at the end of the little announcement. It'd say DV, Deo volente, God willing. And if there's ever been a time in my life where this has become reality, it's been these last 3 weeks. Every day it seems like I have to say, well, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Here's what we believe we're going to do as a church. God willing. Deo volente. If the Lord wills. And I think all of us are finding that in our lives. We're going to get together with family. We're going to have a birthday party. Deo volente. God willing. We're going to go see mom and dad. We're going to celebrate Easter together. Deo volente. God willing. We're going to take a vacation this summer. We're going to go here and there. Here's our plans. We've got our reservations made. But Deo volente, God willing. The scripture that really this comes out of, is born in, is James chapter 4. James 4, 13 through 16. Here's what it says. It says, now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Well, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord will, we will live and we'll do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. So let's break this passage down real quickly. There are two things I think that James is saying here. He's saying, here's what you tend to say, and then here's what you ought to say. So first, here's what you tend to say. You say, today or tomorrow we'll go to this or that city, we'll spend a year there, carry on business, make money. I'll be honest with you, this sounds like a manager talking to a sales team. And it sounds like good business. Right, this guy's saying, look, we've got a product, and we're going to go to a new city, and we're going to open a market there, and maybe we'll get a storefront, and here's our plan for stepping up our manufacturing process, and here's how we're going to onboard new salespeople, and we're going to spend about a year there, and we're going to flood the market, and we're going to make some money. And right, it sounds like good business principles. He's got a plan. He knows what he's about. So what's the problem? Why does James have a problem with this? Well, verse 14, why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. When you get right down to it, James says, yeah, you can have a business plan, but you don't know if there's going to be a competitor that's going to get on the market before you do. You can plan to go to this city, but you don't know if a hurricane's going to hit that city tomorrow and devastate it. You can have a plan, and you should have a plan, but you don't know for sure what's going to happen tomorrow. In fact, James gets pretty dark. The next thing he says, what is your life? You don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. James says, you're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. When you think about it in the big picture of things, when you think in the grand scope of things, geologic time or cosmic time or in the scope of eternity, our lives, 70 years plus 10, 80, maybe 90, they're just a blink of an eye. In the scope of eternity, we're merely a drop in the bucket. We're like a mist that appears, the mist that comes up off the river in the morning. As soon as the sun comes up, it burns away, it vanishes. James, it's fairly dark, but it's big picture. We're not in charge. We don't know if we're going to draw breath tomorrow. And again, the situation we're in makes that so stark, makes that so clear. We don't know if we're going to wake up with this fever, with this gasping for breath that they say COVID brings on. We don't know that. And I don't mean to scare you, and that I don't think the authorities are trying to scare you, but the reality is a lot of people are going to get sick. And a lot of people are going to die. And we're being reminded, whether it's this particular disease or something else, that we don't know what tomorrow will bring. In fact, jump ahead to verse 16. James says, ultimately, here's the problem. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes, and all such boasting is evil. The problem is not with the planning. James isn't opposed to planning. The problem is when we, in our arrogance, begin to think that we can engineer our own lives. This is something probably our society is more prone to than any other society in the history of the world. We think with our technology, and we think with our accumulation of knowledge, and we think with our relative prosperity that we are the masters of our own destiny. That the things we have privilege us to call our own shots. And James wants to remind us that is arrogant thinking. That's boastful, prideful thinking, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. Ultimately, we don't engineer our own lives. Someone else does. So that's what we say. That's what we tend to say. And James says, here's what we ought to say. Verse 15. What we ought to say is, if it's the Lord's will, we will live. And we will do this or that. If it's the Lord's will. Ultimately, we aren't the engineers of our own destinies, but God is. Ultimately, we don't control our own calendars, but God does. And we need the humility to live with the recognition that we're not in charge. And if we don't have the humility to recognize that, if we aren't able to live that way, well, then maybe God will engineer something to teach us that lesson. And it would appear today that's where we are. And so we need to live Deo Volente. And I don't know if we'll get back to marking DV in our church bulletins or not. Probably we should. Today we will. Today we are planning for an Easter service where we're going to invite you to drive in with your cars, and we're going to practice socially responsible social distancing for that Easter celebration. That's the plan, Lord willing. Right? We're going to go to the North Mall, the Iowa Lakes Community College, use that parking lot. We're going to invite a lot of people. Again, we're going to stay in our cars, and we're going to celebrate the Lord's birth. That's the plan. Lord willing. As we think about our businesses, as we think about our schools, as we think about our own summers and what those are going to look like for our families, we can make our plans. But we need to do so Deo Volente, Lord willing. So how do we do that? Here, really quick, three things, three suggestions for how we can live Deo Volente. The first one is this: ask Him for daily bread. When Jesus taught His disciples how to pray, the Lord's Prayer, he included in there that line, give us this day our daily bread. Lord, today, give me what I need for today. I think the line comes from the Israelites' experience in the wilderness when God gave the manna. And one of the instructions when the bread came from heaven was just take what you need for today. And for those who were worried about tomorrow and those who didn't trust what Moses said, they'd hoard extra, they'd keep extra, and they'd find out they'd wake up in the morning, it'd be filled with maggots and turn to rot. Because God was teaching them in the desert that they needed to trust Him. They needed to have the faith that He would provide from day to day what they needed. And I think we need to pray that way today. Lord, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know, but Lord, I'm just asking you for the strength for me to do what I need to do today. And then tomorrow I'm going to ask again that you'll give me the strength to get through what tomorrow brings me. And so we need to pray every day, Lord, give me my daily bread. Second thing, I want to encourage you to be intentional, but be flexible. The Bible's not against planning. There's a proverb that says, the prudent plan and prosper, but the hasty are brought to ruin. Right? If you're going to make a budget, you have to make a budget. If you've got expenses, if you've got bills to pay, you've got to have a plan for where that income's going to come from. If you're going to go to school, if you're going to invest in college, you've got to have some idea what you're going to do on the other side. If you're going to start a business, you've got to have an idea of how many employees you're going to need and how you're going to pay them and what your marketing plan is going to be. There's nothing wrong with planning. The Bible says elsewhere that we should look to the ants. We should take a lesson from the ants who store up in the summer so they'll be ready for the winter. Planning is wise, but we need to be flexible. Again, we're learning that so starkly right now. We need to, there's a saying that goes, write your plans in pencil and then give God the eraser. We need to be flexible and recognize that plans may change. Circumstances outside of our control may affect what happens today and tomorrow and next week. And so let me urge you to be intentional, make plans, and right now more than ever, make your plans as flexible as they can be because things change on a 24-hour basis. And then the third thing, and the most important thing, I want to encourage you to trust the one who controls the calendar. Living Deo Volente means recognizing that we don't engineer our lives, the Lord does. But because we trust Him, because we know that He's a good God, because we know things have not slipped outside of His control, putting our faith and trust in Him is a pretty good place to be. I found this quote on the internet as I was looking at this passage. It says, "Let us remember how wonderfully secure we are in the confidence that it's God who finally governs our lives. God and not chance. God and not our enemies. God and not disease. God and not the devil. I, for one, am very glad that my life is in the hands of an all-loving, all-wise, all-powerful Father. I, for one, am very glad that my life is in the hands of an all-wise, all-loving, all-powerful Father." And so again, as we continue to face weeks, maybe months of an uncertain future, let's put our trust in the Lord's hands. Let's be confident that He controls that calendar. It's not slipped outside of His control. Next week we start Holy Week. Part of Holy Week is that night when Jesus went into the garden and He prayed. And He talked to His Father about what lay ahead. And He said, if it's possible, Lord, maybe you take this cup from me. Maybe if there's another way, maybe in agony. We call it the Passion because He was in agony, because He knew what was coming. But then He said, not my will, but yours be done. And as we move into Holy Week in the middle of the great quarantine of 2020, I want this to be my prayer. Not my will, Father, but yours. Not my plans, but yours. Deo volenti, Lord willing. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's how we're going to handle this. But Father, I trust things to your control. And God bless you. Be well. We'll talk to you later.